Hey, welcome all my real estate professional friends and referral partners. This is Mark Stiles of Stiles Law coming at you with another webinar to help you with your clients. As the spring market gets ready to ramp up, I know that some of you have an opportunity to be asked by your clients, can you help me review this ALTA settlement sheet that was just delivered by the closing attorney? So if you are in that situation, hopefully this will be helpful to you. Hopefully you have an attorney on your team that you can punt that question to. However, we find ourselves often sitting there at the table with somebody asking questions, and here's how we're going to look good, okay? So this is how we go over it at Stiles Law when both buyers and sellers are available at the closing table. And obviously it would be different if we were just sitting with the seller or we were just sitting with the buyer, but the information is all the same. Are we ready? All right. So here's what we do. We sit down and we say, this is called the ALTA Settlement Sheet. This is the document that explains where all the money goes. Money in, money out, and who gets what, when, and how. Okay? The top portion is the basic fundamentals, who we are. We are the closing attorney office at Stiles Law. And by the way, we're happy to assist with any of your clients. And we are accepting referrals. Haha. I am the closing attorney. Here is our office, but we serve all of Massachusetts from Pittsfield to P-Town and everything in between. Here is the property address of the transaction that's happening in Anytown, Massachusetts. Bobby Buyer is our buyer, Sally Sellers our seller, and ABC Lending is the lender. Today is March 1st, 2018. Well, it's not really, but in this case it will be. Disbursement date, also the same day. So obviously, for you folks, this is a purchase. Refinances, just for your education, will have a different disbursement date because of the rescission period. But we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. So we've got two sides, the buyer side and the seller side. Each one has two columns, a debit column and a credit column. What I typically do is I say this. This document acts as a balancing sheet. You'll see that the buyer's purchase price equals the seller's sale price, which is $6.99. So you'll see it go back and forth all the way down until we get to the bottom where there's one number for each. Okay, and then I step aside and I say, I'm going to go over the buyer side first. So seller, take a look at yours, and we'll be back. So I always say credits are much more fun than debits because debits are costs, credits are credits. So your earnest money deposit that's been deposited with the listing agent was the $35,000. The loan amount is $594,150. There was a credit on the purchase and sale agreement from the seller. So debit seller, credit buyer, balancing sheet for whatever the reason was. We won't go into that. And then there's a credit from your lender for $1,000. Again, not sure why. Doesn't matter. It's a credit. Those are fun. Totaling $631,100. And then we go to the debit side, the cost associated with it. So the purchase price we already talked about. And then we have the adjustments, okay? Prorations and adjustments. The first is for taxes. Here, to just make it really complicated, there's two tax parcels that are billed separately. Today is the closing date, March 1st. The end of that tax quarter is March 31st. Seller already paid that tax bill. So buyer is paying the seller back for the time of their ownership. Today, closing date till the end of the quarter. Okay? Then the same with the oil. How much oil is left in there? We get a measurement from an oil company that tells us we've got backup receipts, debit, buyer, credit, seller. Okay? For the oil that's left in there. Then we have the loan charges from ABC Lending, our friendly lender for the buyer. Origination charges, lumping a lot of the costs into it here. Very reasonable. Appraisal fee, sometimes it's paid outside closing because they paid with a credit card. Then it would be in this column, already paid. But here it hasn't been, okay? ABC Lending trusted that it was going to go through. Credit report, same thing. Prepaid interest, look at that, it's zero. It's zero because it's the first day of the month. It's the only time it will be zero. Every day it goes on, it gets to the end of the month. It's collecting towards the end of the month, which is why a lot of people like to close at the end of the month, but we dissuade them because it's money that gets paid either now or later, 6, 1/2 dozen of the other. Other charges, okay? Homeowners insurance, we like to have that paid up front. Lenders always want that paid up front. So they probably either paid it, which would be listed in here, or it's being collected at closing. Same with the next tax bill. So on this adjustment, March 1st, that's for January, February, and March. First quarter of the calendar year, third quarter of the fiscal year. Again, not going down that rabbit hole. But the next tax bill that's coming due is going to be on May 1st. So the ABC Lending has asked us as closing attorneys to collect those for them. Now, I'm not sure there's many tax bills on a $699,000 home that are that inexpensive in Massachusetts. Maybe in Nantucket, that's about it. Impounds, that's what we used to call escrows. So in addition to making sure that insurance is paid for the year in advance and taxes are paid current, we're collecting an escrow account, an impound account. And we always say that we're going to go over a document that explains that much more thoroughly in the closing package, but this is to set up the escrow account so that as the payments are made, the escrow account will increase and then it'll decrease as items are paid. In this case, it's just homeowners insurance and taxes. Sometimes you'll see flood insurance and sometimes you'll see mortgage insurance. Here, the most important part of the equation, yuck, title charges and settlement charges. So our fee, title insurance to must-have title insurance company. Hint, hint, every consumer should have, even though it's optional. And then the lender mandated policy. Plot plan, these are usually the cost associated with getting these items, municipal lien certificate. In this case, there were 2, and then a title exam. Okay, so most of these are out of pocket. These are insurance payments, and then this is the fee to the closing attorney. Then we typically say, because you're the buyer, you don't pay a commission for this. However, your buyer agent, in this case, 123 Realty, I'm sure would be very, very pleased to list your house come time. Recording cost, they're broken down here. It's just deed and mortgage, 302. Deed and mortgage, municipal lien certificate, and then homestead, which is typically complimentary through the buyer representation fee listed here. So all of your buyer's costs are listed here, and then you subtract them from your credits, and you've got a total amount that they will need to bring to closing. So when they say, I'm not sure how much I bring to closing, it's right there, the bottom line number, okay? Then we move over to the seller side. Simply stated, we've got the credit of the sale price. We've got the credit for those taxes that the buyer will be living in the home. So they've proved to the closing attorney that they paid the February tax bill for January, February, and March. So they're owed that money back because they're not going to own the property for a period of time that they paid the tax. Same with the oil. They're leaving with some oil and they've agreed to get paid back for it. All of those credits is the $699, $452, $47. But there's obviously going to be some charges associated with that. Here, they agreed to a $1,000 credit at the time of the purchase and sale agreement. So we debit their side, credit buyer side. Excess deposit, look at that, $50. We put that in here just to show, because it does happen sometimes, but most of the time the deposit, earnest money, equals the commission, so it's a wash. But in this case, the commission was $34 and change. I forget what it was, $50 short here. So there's $50 in excess with the listing agent's company. So that's a separate check. Sometimes listing agents, you bring a separate check to the closing. Here it is, okay? And then you've got your commission here, which is the $17,475 each, which gives you the $34,950, which is why we have that $50 excess. I had a brain cramp earlier, but that's how that arithmetic works out. And then, of course, the one question most sellers always ask, what is this deed stamps? The deed stamps are basically a tax, a transfer tax. Goes to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We collect it as closing attorneys, and it's based on $4.56 per $1,000 of the purchase price. So $699 times 4.56 equals this number right here. And then Barnstable County and Dukes and the islands have an additional transfer tax. Recording cost, there is a discharge. So XYZ Lending is the seller's current lender who they're paying their mortgage to. That needs to be paid off. So we get written payoff statement to the day that we believe we can get XYZ lending paid off, whether it's by wire or FedEx check. And then we're going to record that discharge. There's a fee associated with that. Very customarily, there's a fee associated with it because it can be a pain in the neck for the closing law firm to collect the discharge from a company like XYZ. Sometimes there's a recording fee on the payoff, so this wouldn't be here. But in this case, XYZ Lending has not itemized their recording costs, so they're obviously going to send it to the consumer or to us who paid them off. And then here, Larry Lawyer has charged the seller $17.50 for his services as seller representative, which is a fair fee. Total debit is here. Total credit is here. And the total amount due the seller that they're going to be walking with, hopefully to your next closing listing agent, to buyer agent, is $461,462.03. Okay? And then we all just sign Bobby Buyer, Sally Seller, and closing attorney extraordinaire. So that, folks, is the settlement statement. So when your clients get that and they have questions, please refer back to this. On our next webinar, we're going to be talking about the CD. You will not see that as much, but sometimes your clients will receive those and ask questions about it. If there's anything else you want to learn about, we're happy to create a webinar and get it out to you. So until then, get out there and sell some houses and refer Stiles Law. We can be reached at 781-319-1900 or www.stiles-law.com. Be well, all.